Perfect. Here we are. Episode 3, Call You on Shots podcast, featuring Gerard Littlejohn. Gerard, appreciate you. Before we jump in, for all the first time listeners to the Call You on Shots podcast, this is a great platform for people that are looking to get into sports and entertainment. This entire platform, the shot calls in general, is extremely focused on authentic storytelling within sports culture and entertainment. So, in terms of storytelling, in terms of inspiration for the next generation of industry leaders, professionals across the whole, foray of, all those industries, which overlap a ton. A lot of these conversations are extremely valuable for those folks that might be in college or grad school, might even be professionals right now looking to kind of make a pivot or at least learn a little bit more about the industry. So these conversations are extremely helpful. And I know, Gerard, we recently connected, and I appreciate you for opening up the doors for that as well. It's a very small world. I got a lot of love for North Carolina, a lot of friends from NC as well. So I appreciate you for jumping on, being part of this journey, and also sharing your story as well, which is super important for the next up and coming creators and marketers as well. So I appreciate that.
Man, I appreciate you, man. I think like you said, we've had a chance to meet, we've had a chance to talk a little bit, and man, I love what you're building. I love kind of what the shot callers is standing for. I think there's a place for it. I think I'm in a point in my career now where I feel like I'm in it, and so man, just big kudos to you for seeing the gap, filling the gap, and no, I'm looking forward to our conversation. It's going to be really good.
Perfect. Well, sweet. Let's just jump in. I gave a quick background. I know, you're from North Carolina, but if you can kind of quickly just touch on, how you initially got into the industry, what kind of sparked that, and then we'll go down that road about everything else.
Man, it's a long journey, but it's a journey that I'm proud of, man. I'm as you said, man, I'm from North Carolina, born in Charlotte, grew up right outside of Charlotte in a town called Lexington. Went to high school there, came back to Charlotte to go to school at UNC Charlotte, and I've been in Charlotte ever since. I've never left. I'm a rare breed in the sports industry that has never had to pack up and move and go to New York or LA or Vegas or Chicago or any of these other big sports towns. I've done it all from Charlotte, and I'm proud of that. But really, man, my journey to sports starts in childhood, to where I was, sports was an outlet for me. Sports really kept me straight, kept me on the straight and narrow. It gave me father figures at time because I was in a single parent home. Me, my mom, my aunt, my grandmother, and my cousin. And so like I learned sports from them. I learned sports because my aunt is a huge baseball and football fan. My grandmother was a huge baseball and softball fan. And so, sports was always on TV. And it was kind of almost a non-negotiable that you're involved in some sort of sport. My cousins all play football, and so I was just in it. But I like a lot of other people, I learned so many life lessons from sports, from overcoming adversity and chasing goals and all those different things. Go to college. My freshman year, I was intent that I was going to be an IT computer science major, and statistics and calculus quickly taught me that was not going to be the case. And so had to
You ain't
pivot,
the only one, man.
or else I was going to get, and I had to pivot, or else I was going to get kicked out of school. I was on academic probation my first semester. Um, so it was that bad, just having to adjust, and just all the things of college. But now I had to adjust, and in that adjustment period, I had to go back and just realize, like, what was I passionate about? And I'd always been a strong communicator, even though I didn't necessarily always like to, but I was always, whether it's a talker or writing or just being able to get my points across, I could always do that. And I had actually taken a journalism class my senior year in high school, and my journalism teacher at the time told me I was a really, really good writer. And I would always get like A's and stuff on writing tests. Like I was, again, I was a good communicator. and I was the sports editor of our paper only because I was already there, right? Like I'm at these games because I'm participating. So I was just,
Right. You're in
but
the
I was
mix.
just, and it's my senior year. So I was in the mix, but also I guess my senior year. So man, I was just taking something easy so I could get up out of there and get ready to go to college. But she sat me down. She's like, "Look, you have a real gift, and you should consider it." But I wasn't able to receive that. My senior year, I was dead set on I wanted to get into computer science. That's what all my friends were doing. That's what people were telling me I should be doing. So about a year later, and I'm struggling in college. To be quite honest with you, when I'm struggling in college, is really what I'm like. All right, let me revisit those thoughts. So let me revisit all this stuff. And I end up going to my advisor in college at the time and just saying like, what can I do? And she mentioned sports PR and sports marketing, and I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what that even meant, what that was. Again, I came from small town North Carolina. I mean, just being able to see downtown Charlotte or downtown New York or downtown, like being able to imagine myself in that that thought alone was foreign to me, much less like sports, working in sports. I didn't even know that was a thing. I just thought that when I'm watching a basketball game and I watch the Chicago Bulls and the Blazers, and when Michael Jordan and Clyde Drexler do post game interviews, I thought that was it. And everybody packs up and goes home. I had no idea that there was marketing, design, legal, HR, now content. Like I had no idea those things even existed. That was just foreign to me as a profession. And so I had an advisor talk to me about like this could be a career path, and I was set. And I think literally the next week or sometime after that, we actually had someone from the Charlotte Hornets, they were the Charlotte Bobcats at the time, would come and speak to our school about, and the sports marketing club, about what she did behind the scenes. And I was just like floored, like this could be something that I could do. And I've been pursuing sports ever since. So I fell in love with that somehow, some way. I still couldn't tell you how I did it, but I ended up applying for an internship with the Bobcats, with the Hornets. Got that, did that my summer of my junior year, amongst having to do work study, amongst having to still have a part-time job. There would be times I would come late, I'd leave early, vice versa. And I had started to build a relationship with my manager at the time, who was at that time a brother named BJ Evans, who I talk about a lot if you listen to a lot of my interviews or any of my stuff. But BJ, who was a black man and one of the few black men who worked in PR in the NBA. And I went to him after my internship and was like, "Hey man, this is during the summer. I'm getting college credit. I'd love to come back in the fall. I've already talked to my advisor. I can get additional credit. Would you allow me to come back? Because I just feel like and again, being an athlete, like I feel like I left some plays on the field. I feel like I left
Right.
something out there. Can I come back? Can I come back during basketball season? Because I was also, again, I was interning during the summer, so I wasn't there during the actual season. So can I come back during the season? And I'll never forget, man. He looked at me. He was like, "Why would I do that when I can hire you and hire me part
Mm.
time uh, to work my senior year? That paid me enough to where I didn't have to do the work study or the part time job anymore." And what it honestly did was gave me a year of experience before I even graduated from college. And so, and I mean, we'll get into the rest of that, but that was also the first experience that I had with someone giving me their social capital, which is really what I think about when I think about blacks in sports, and how we as a culture infiltrate this industry, is really leveraging the social capital that we have. And so that was my experience of having that done for me, to have that door opened up. And now for me, I've just, ever since that door has been cracked open for me, like the bane of my existence is how do I get and continue to diversify sports? How do I get more black people at the table when it comes to working within the sports industry and within culture, and this whole new, well, I won't say new, but this whole new rising genre that
It's
like
different.
shot callers and what we're talking about, that is now different. Like I just feel like this is our collective moment as black people, because what we embody, who we are, as people is now front and center, whether that's been leveraged by player voices, whether that's been recognized now by more brands as far as how they talk and communicate to the culture, and how what we've always known is that Black culture is the main driver of what's cool in our country, in the world. And so I think it's our collective moment. And so I've been doing this for a long time, but now I think it's a lot more prevalent. But that's how I got into it. And from that point on, I worked for the team right out of college. I worked for Lowe's, Dick's Sporting Goods, in sports marketing roles for them. I've been on the player side, I've been on the nonprofit side, and now I work for an agency, GMR Marketing, and I work in partnerships, really looking at what we're talking about, Bryce, in terms of how we can leverage brands to see how culture shapes, and then how we really what I say is I'm really at that intersection of sports and culture and impact and all these different things. Really, how do we pull that string through together? And then a couple of years ago started my own video production company called Creators Collab, where we intently work with Black and brown and other marginalized creators to make branded content, corporate storytelling, you name it, working with a ton of brands from Allies to Lowe's to PGA Tour to I can keep going, but no, man, I'm right in it. So that's why, when you reached out and when we had conversation, I'm like, man, I gotta talk to you because this is exactly where my career is right now.
No, I mean, a lot there that you shared, and I want to get into what you're doing now, and the Creators Collab as well. The one thing that you mentioned, and we often hear a lot of in entertainment today, is storytelling. We see that with The Last Dance, and I'm sure Tom Brady's gonna have something, and Kobe. Storytelling across the board with influencers, with talent, stuff like that. And this kind of also pours into your own personal story when you're kind of meeting young people that are trying to differentiate themselves from the masses, and trying to get their foot into the door of said agency, brand, what have you. How important is storytelling, not only in sports, but sports culture and entertainment? How important is that?
I, my opinion is the single most important thing. It's how you communicate authenticity. It's how you communicate messages directly. And I think that now, where we are in a society, people are craving the real. People want the behind the scenes. People want to see how those coming of age stories, how you got from point A to point B. I think that's what's most impactful. People want to see it, people want to experience it, and people want to see how it is from soup to nuts, how it is from inception to execution. And storytelling does that. And when you're able to communicate stories, I think it rallies people. I think it inspires people. I think it pulls the curtain back to where people can see, oh, that's what goes on, or that's what they were thinking, or that's how they did it, right? Like, all those things come about with storytelling. But I think the most important part of storytelling is, how are you able to make sure that that story is authentic? How do you make sure that it has cultural fluency? How are you able to make sure that story is being told through a lens that isn't filtered to where it's reduced, or the story that was there is now like a shell of itself, or even to a degree it's
Mm.
like propaganda, right? So I think I believe storytelling is the single most important thing that a brand, an individual, and you're seeing that, right? Like, you're seeing now just the wave of Giannis is starting a production company, right? Like, from the Bucks, right? Like, you've got Tom Brady has invested a ton. Julian Edelman has a huge storytelling arm. I mean, I can keep going on. Kevin Durant, LeBron, right? In Spring Hill, right? Like, there are so many instances now that you see where people are seeing how collective voices and the storytelling attached to that, that's what shapes it. And I think it's as big now as it's ever been. Also, when you coincide with the rise of social media and people showing the behind the scenes of their lives, people showing their authenticity. Now, players and brands having their own channels to communicate their own messages. You have to have the right story to pull all that together.
Yeah, no, definitely. When you look at a lot of the athletes that you mentioned, they're not only taking what they've done on the court, the field, wherever their sport is, they're finding a way to kind of message it, package it up, message that, and then distribute it somehow, some way. So that's a big thing. Could you think about how you, like you said, bringing it soup to nuts, how you bringing these things to life? When, I guess, what would you say are like some keys to individuals that are either pivoting into the industry, that are trying to tell their story, whether that's via a resume, via their LinkedIn, their social media? Because one thing that I've seen, and I know you've seen it as well, is people leveraging these emerging platforms to be different, be unique. To, hey, this is who Bryce is. This is who Gerard. Like, this is a glimpse into my life. And this actually might be a great segue into the Creators Collab. But talk to us about some things that people could do to differentiate, and then also we could look at Creators Collab to understand exactly what you're doing with that platform to kind of share stories as well.
I think the number one thing when it comes to branding yourself, and my answer 10 years ago might have been different, but it's being authentic. I think, going back to what I said before, whether it's been the demand for people to see more authenticity, and with the rise of social media, I just think that people just want the real. Like, to be completely transparent, people want the real. And I think also, too many times, especially for us as Black professionals, and then when you double click into that a little bit more, especially for us as Black professionals who have worked in sports, and I'll even say in just corporate period, we found that we've probably had to assimilate at times. We've had to water ourselves down. We've had to code switch. We've had to do all of those things. And don't get me wrong, I think that we have to understand sometimes professionalism and how we have to do that. But that aside, I think we have probably too often than not lost our own selves when it comes to, I need to get into that room, so I need to speak how that room speaks. I need to make sure I dress how that room dresses. And I need to play the part. And I think in actuality now, it is now more so being yourself. And I think that is the best way. A lot of people have asked me before, like, what should I say on social media, or how should I brand myself, or what branding tips do I have? My brand is all about, I don't have a brand, because I'm just me. And so I think the more that you can just be comfortable within your own skin, the more that you can realize that your lived experience, your learned experience, I'm telling you, there is a brand, there's an organization, there is a team, an agency, whatever it is. Someone is dying to know that story. That story is going to help shape a campaign. That story is going to help give strategy to something that needs to be kicked off. Like, I think we underestimate, again, going back to how we shape culture. I think that there is more of a thirst than ever. And just with my experience, I'm coming up on, I'm an old head, but I'm coming up on like almost 20 years in the game. But I'm
Season.
all check for me. But you're surprised at how much these brands and organizations that we hold up, sometimes they just don't know, man. Like, sometimes they need your perspective, Bryce. They need your perspective as a young professional who's in New York City. They need the perspective of a older millennial who grew up in North Carolina. Right? Like, I think those perspectives are often not seen. I'll give you an example, and then I'll get to another point too. But I was working on a project for a brand that wanted to do an HBCU tour, and also wanted to align that HBCU tour with markets that they have out, across the country, from the north to the south to the west or whatever. And so, as we were looking at that, had no idea which HBCUs were in which region. This is huge brands we're talking about, that
Oh,
even
they
to that
didn't know which
level don't
HBCUs were in
understand.
each region.
Correct. That's why I'm saying, even something as trivial as, maybe years before I would have been like, that's not my problem. Now that is more so, that is a problem, right? Like, that is a problem in terms of Why do you not know that? And I am there to help educate on that. As frustrated as that may make me be, I'm there to help with that. And so I say all that to say, like, your lived experience, your learned experience, as you're branding yourself as a professional, as you are thinking about what move you want to make, that stuff's critical. And because of what I just said, and because of when have been in these rooms with brands or at organizations when, this new marketing campaign is going to get kicked off, or we want to launch this storytelling project, and shoot these testimonials or features or whatever it is, when I look around the room, I'm often the only person of color there. And a lot of times, the campaigns or the projects that we want to reach are people who look like us, but we're not on the front end of figuring out, well, how's that going to sound? How's that going to come across? What's the tone? What's the look and feel? All of those things I've just experienced, right? That sometimes we're not there. And when I look back through and over the past few years, I just realized that, again, as I told you with shot callers, you identified an area and you filled a gap. And so I saw the same thing. I see all these brands work with third party vendors when it comes to, we need to create this content, we need to create this campaign, we need to strategize against that. But I would never see employees that look like me. And then often I would never see vendors look like that too. And I just saw that there's an opportunity. And so throughout my career, I've been able to just build relationships with so many Black creatives, right? Other Black and brown creatives, women creatives, right? Like, just being able to see that there's an untapped market, and then there's an unrealized opportunity that we weren't always a part of. And so I started Creators Collab around 4 years ago, and really it was to address that. It was to address that. I just felt far too often, especially coming off the heels of George Floyd's murder, and a lot of brands were responding to what happened. And I felt like a lot was inauthentic. I felt like a lot was missing the mark. And that just really had me kick this thought that I had in my head really into hyperdrive. So spent about a year just kind of building up a team and taking on some smaller projects. And then in 2021, we had an opportunity to do some stuff with NASCAR, and that went well. And really, I'd say in the last couple of years, I mean, we've done everything from stuff with Dreamville. We've done stuff with, like I said, PGA Tour. We've done stuff with here in the city of Charlotte. I mean, just a number of, whether it's sports side, multicultural side, just corporate and brand storytelling, you name it, we've been able to do it. And we've been able to build into a full service video production company here in the last couple of years that takes on really high quality work. And we're buzzing a little bit, so that feels good. But honestly, man, all that stuff is cool. But when I'm able to make an impact on the Black creative community, when I'm able to help give opportunities to people who otherwise wouldn't have that opportunity, and see people grow. I've had a videographer who did stuff with me, and now he's moved on. And with the Houston Texans, I got another guy who did work with us, and he is doing now creative stuff with a big company called Compass Group. So to see people now start to, like, matriculate into their careers, or start to do even other projects with the Rams, and, like, I mean, we've touched a whole lot of things. And so to see that, and to see other Black people get opportunity, that's worth it, man. That's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is access, and obviously as you maneuver through corporate, and you're fortunate, you're blessed to work hard and also be able to get entry into certain rooms. And as you continue to grow and ascend and get promoted in X, Y, and Z, you might look around to the left or right, like, damn, like, I'm still the only brother here, I'm still the only sister here. Like, cool, I'm
Yeah.
representing for myself, but also I know that I need to do a hell of a job, because for the next Bryce or Gerard or whoever is coming through the door after me, I gotta make sure that I'm killing it. And throughout any medium, is there a way that I can tap in someone else to be a vendor on this project? Or, hey, I need a photographer in this city. That was a big thing when I was, at Body Armor. If we had a production shoot, or we had something going on, we needed someone to kind of get some quick shots. I always try to think of my Rolodex of colleagues, like, yo, who could I tap in with really quick just to get this
Yeah.
experience, just to kind of say that they were a part of this. And it, from everything I've read and what you told me about with Creators Collab is you've created that platform, on a larger on a larger lens, and you've been able to give people who,
Yeah.
this their crack, their first shot, or maybe their second, third shot, but they've been able to parlay that, either staying where they want to 10x it and go to the next thing. So access is a huge issue within sports entertainment, but it's also the best opportunity that we can give someone is that foot in the door, for them to kind of take it and run with it.
I mean, I gave you the BJ Evans story of just me, being a college kid who had no idea how to move in this industry, had no idea what I should be doing, and probably more than anything, had no idea the potential that I had. And so for someone else to see that in me when I didn't even know that it was in me to begin with, and then to be able to give that opportunity based on, because this conversation is what you call social capital, right? And that's how, if we're being completely honest, that's how we see our white colleagues move, right? If Sally, who is let's if Sally, who last name is Davis, probably has a good in when it comes to when they're applying for a job with the Las Vegas Raiders because of right, because of that name. And so largely we have always lacked social capital, not just in sports, period, across the board. And so when you're able to now gain social capital, as I now have, right, just being able to move in my career, being able to build those relationships, nurture those relationships. And the other part, bro, building relationships is great. And if you've been to any sports conference, or if you've been to any seminar or anything, everyone's going to talk to you about relationships, as they should. It is the single greatest thing that you can have in sports, because the minute you can have someone vouch for you, you're going to get to the top of the stack when you're applying for that job, or you're going to get the reminder of, hey, I need to bring in Bryce for that project, whatever that is. That is great, and it is number one. But I'm going to tell you, 1B is execution. Like, there's one thing to get in the room, it's another thing to stay in the room. And that's one thing that I'm having to constantly work with people on. Is it's great to build the relationship, and it is great to network, and it's great, but you got to be able to do it. You got to be able to stay there. And that's been a big thing for me. But going back to like I said, going back to the access story, to have someone be able to see that in me, to be able to have someone provide opportunity, knowing that if he gets it, I know he's going to do the right thing, but I got to be able to give him the opportunity to do so. That is now in me to do that tenfold, because someone did that for me, right? Like, I owe my career to BJ for giving me the one shot. That's all I needed, was the shot, and I was in there. And to your point, I think that there are tons, floods, millions of people who probably aspire to do some of the work that we have done, but just don't know how to get there, or just don't know how to crack that door, or who it is that I should be talking to. But immensely creative and qualified, and they can do the work. And so that's the same thing that I've done, with Creators Collab. Is we've got people who we're just, listen, the equipment is the equipment, whether it's a Sony F6, whether it is a Sony Venice, whether it's a Red Raptor. Like, the equipment is the equipment. The value add that I've been able to be excited about, that we bring, is that we are the culture. We know how to shape it. We know how it's supposed to look. We know when someone looks at it as a finished product on their phone, and when they're scrolling, we know what's hot, we know what's whack. We know what people are gonna run to. We know what someone's gonna be like, I ain't looking at that shit. Like, everyone, like, we just know that because we're part of that. And so for us to be able to bring that cultural fluency to brands, for us to be able to bring that authenticity to brands, while also still bringing the same amount of execution, bringing the same amount of storytelling power, being able to do all of that. I mean, that's the secret sauce, right? And so, and it's what I'm most proud of.
And there's money and power in the follow-up. A lot of people, to your point,
Yes.
they've mastered the, okay, I got the number, I got the email, or what have you. The email, the number don't mean anything if you haven't tapped in, if you haven't followed up, if you haven't had some type of conversation, or
gotta execute, man.
anything.
That goes back to the second point. It's the execution part, right? Like that. It's one thing to get it. I'm telling you, it's another thing to do something with it.
Right. Totally different conversations as well. And thank you for talking more about the Creators Collab. I will wrap shortly, but I have one thing that I wanted to ask you, or really this is our rapid fire. So 3 quick questions. I'll get to you. Let me
Okay.
know what you think, and
Okay.
we'll get it out there. Advice to your younger self. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Ooh, advice to my younger self. Ease up, ease up on the conforming. I think I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time early on conforming to what others' ideas of work for me, others' ideas of me, and so I'd say definitely kill it with the conformity. Would be my advice to my younger self.
Okay, perfect. Obviously, you talked a lot about the behind the camera and storytelling. Who's your favorite storyteller? Whether that's an athlete, director, film, person. Uh, give me one.
Um, I'll say outside of sports, Ron Coogler by far.
Okay,
Ron Coogler and Issa Rae. I'll say both of those. Both of those, like I hold them in such high regard for a lot of the things that we talked about in terms of not conforming. If you've ever seen any interviews or done research on Ron Coogler, he is a Bay cat. Like he's straight Bay, but he's also highly decorated, highly educational, very smart, but tells stories of our community in real ways. And same thing with Issa Rae, right? Like just tremendously intelligent, tremendously authentic, funny, and so really captures so many emotions and so many of the pieces he produced. So those would be 1A, 1B. I say in let's just call it culture in sports. I mean, you just gotta LeBron, right? I mean, just what LeBron
right.
and Mav have done with Spring Hill is just amazing. I think when they kind of started doing the player podcast and uninterrupted, and if you followed it really kind of those mid 2010s ish, like that really has been the catalyst for a lot of the things we see now, from Club Shay Shay to any other athlete's platform uninterrupted, and LeBron starting to do this now, what, 12-ish years ago. I mean, LeBron is the greatest of all times off the court, and you're hard pressed to
You ain't
find
got no
someone else.
argument.
There's a lot of people doing a lot of things, but yeah.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah, you ain't got no argument on the LeBron goat talk from me, so I'll save that. And then last one, project that you didn't work on or that you saw that you wish you were a part of or produced yourself.
Whew. Oh man. That's a tough one for me to think about. I'll say here's what I'll say. I really admire. This came up in a conversation the other day. I really admire a lot of the storytelling that Nike does. Nike really runs the gambit when it comes from cultural inspiration to even using their brand for activism. When you think about what they've done for Colin Kaepernick, when you think about some of the things that they've done around also fusing culture and using diverse voices, how they've championed women's sports a lot. I can't point to one particular Nike project because there's so many. Like they're from
Yeah,
different cultural conversations. So there's so many, but I will say Nike as a brand, they do get it. They absolutely know how to just have this wide breadth of storytelling, and being able to partner with different entities that just comes across authentic, leveraging the right voices and standing for a lot of things to a lot of people. Nike does it well. So I don't have one specific project, but I'll say like overall as a brand and all the if they're the hub and all the spokes, like I could probably pick off a lot of spokes, but the hub would be Nike. They do a tremendous job.
sweet. No, a lot of good gems there. A lot of good gems you shared throughout the entire conversation, as well, Gerard. So happy to kind of been a part of this and looking forward to clipping this up and getting everything out to the masses so you can inspire some more people, man, for sure. I appreciate you again. Thank you for carving out the time to be here. Feel free to, we'll make sure that we drop all your information as well, where to reach you, where to follow you, and where to follow a lot of your work too.
Man, I appreciate you. I've told you in private. I'll tell you in public, give you your flowers, man. But I think you're really on to something. I think, like I've said, this is much needed. The interviews that you are having with people, this is a place, right? Like there is this whole community that is rising up, or even just kind of being seen as far as Black creatives who are in sports, who have this cultural awareness. We've been here all along, but now it's being more recognized by organizations and teams. And for you to be able to promote these stories, for you to be able to feature people who are, listen, man, to a degree, the engine of a lot of these teams, players, leagues, agencies, brands. Like, we're the lifeblood. We're bringing those cultural insights. We're bringing that strategy. We're bringing our experiences. We're bringing our full Black selves. And I think the way that you're able to have people on and be able to say, like, hey, here's how I'm moving, here's how I'm doing it. Man, this is huge, bro. So I'm here however you need me. And so just want to tell you, man, like, Bryce, you're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing, fam.
Appreciate you, brother. All is well. Thank you. Have a great week, and we'll definitely speak soon.
You too, bro. All right, man. Holla at you.